year you'll be dying with the rest of us. You know, Scott Abbott's a good friend of mine. He preached a message here a little bit ago. He sang in the choir today. He'll be leading worship sometime in the future. He is a man who's in a wheelchair here and has a great singing and teaching ministry. He's got muscular dystrophy. In the last 20 years, he's had to watch himself lose the use of his legs and then slowly lose the use of his arms. And his body is just in a state of atrophy. We had a conversation several weeks or several months ago. I don't know anymore. Some time ago. And in that conversation, I said something which I want to share with all of us. I think it's true, and it's just this. The only difference between Scott and the rest of us is that he's at a slightly accelerated pace of atrophy. We're all winding down. We're all wearing out. And if you can come to grips with that, it's actually kind of fascinating when you turn about 50. The stuff your body does is really weird. And this is new. Back in the old days, you'd wake up with aches and pains, but you knew why. You got hit by a car, or you ran a marathon, or you played football or something. Turning 50 means your body doesn't need to give you a why. I woke up the other day, it was Wednesday, just before my toe got infected. What a great week I've had. And my elbow wasn't working. It was, ow, it was like really sore to extend it, and I couldn't grab anything, and it's still kind of sore. Now, I didn't lift anything. I didn't, bump it. I didn't bruise it. I didn't abuse it. Maybe I slept on it wrong. Ooh. And this thing's not working. What is up with that? Back in the good old days, I could eat food and not worry about it. Those days are gone. No, I would just chew and swallow. It was pretty simple, actually. Now I have to chew it especially fine because otherwise it gets caught in my ever-shrinking esophagus. I didn't know what esophagus was until it started shrinking. It's crazy. I used to be able to run literally 100 miles. And now I run 3 miles and my back starts whining. What's up with that? And if you're over 50, you know what I'm talking about. Have you discovered that you grunt a lot? I just started noticing this like 2 years ago. You get in the car. Ugh. You get out of the car. Oh. I don't even bother to pick up quarters anymore. It's like, well, leave it. Not worth it. Pretty soon it's going to go up to dollars. It's just not worth it. There's all this grunting. Get out of bed. Oh. But then when you go to bed, oh. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm still a super stud. Anyone who knows me will tell you that. I'm ahead of most 20-year-olds, but even I am in a state of decay. We're all in a state of atrophy. We're all dying. You look in the mirror, and there's always a new wrinkle. You're losing your muscle tone. There's a new sag. There's a new bag. There's more gut, and there's more butt. And, and then there's that horrifying moment when you look in the mirror, and it's like, oh, my gosh, I look like my father or my mother, and you vowed you would never look like your father or mother. That horrifying realization about a year ago put me on a new plan of exercise and eating right. I tell you, no offense, Dad, but I never liked your body. He always, So we're dying physically, okay? But we're dying in other ways, too. In case you don't have enough bad news, I'll give you more. We're dying in other ways, too. I was reading a philosopher last year, a Jewish philosopher in the first century named Philo. He was very influential on the thinkers of the early church in some negative ways, I believe. But he said some wise and profound things. And one of the things he said that I found that I really liked is this. He said, every day we die. We die every day. And what he meant by that is this. Every day there's a multitude of possibilities that we pass by, that we have to pass by, because we're finite beings. And most of those possibilities are irretrievably gone. We can't ever get them again. We die to possibilities. Life is a process of doors closing, possibilities closing. And the final closing is death, the cessation of all possibilities. When they close the casket, all possibilities cease. Life is a process of foregoing possibilities, of having doors close on you. Once upon a time, I could have been, perhaps, a really good drummer. I was heading in that direction. Once upon a time, I maybe could have been an Olympic long-distance runner. I was thinking about trying for that. Once upon a time, there's various romantic relationships that I could have pursued. Once upon a time, I had to make this decision. At the last moment, do I go into philosophy or do I go into theology? And I could have gone either way, but I chose theology. My life took a different course. I got on a different train. Of all the women I could have married, I chose Shelley, and what a great choice that was. And if you think there was really all that many other candidates, I got a bridge to sell you. But I'm saying, I could have pursued a few other possibilities. But see, the train goes in one direction and it keeps speeding up, and you can't turn it back. And the possibilities close with every choice we make. Maybe once upon a time your marriage was salvageable, but now for various reasons perhaps it's not. That marriage is dead and you have to die to it. Once upon a time you could have been a model, but now you can't. Once upon a time maybe you could have gone to grad school. You thought about doing that, but now maybe for various reasons that window of opportunity is closed. Once upon a time perhaps you could have been a rock star, but now that possibility is behind you. Once upon a time maybe you could have been that missionary to Tanzania like you thought about, but for various reasons perhaps now that possibility is gone. Once upon a time maybe you could have married your high school sweetheart, but now she's already married and you're already married, so you need to die to that possibility. Life goes on and possibilities close. We have to die to those possibilities. Some people pretend that that's not true. Some people try to pretend that the train can go in reverse. They live in what Bruce Springsteen called your glory days. You know, those folks are always talking about, remember when and remember that time. Watch October Road if you want to see some people who are really messed up in this area. They can't let go of the past. I was a football star back then. Oh, if only the coach had put me in the fourth quarter, I could have been something. We could have went to state. Yada, yada, yada. Living in those glory days. It's kind of sad. They miss the now. Life is always in the now. Even sadder are those people who don't just pretend like the train can go in reverse. They try to make the train go in reverse. Maybe they regret the train they got on. It's not really taking them to the destination they wanted. And so they try to resurrect those past possibilities that are really behind them. And so they try to go back to the high school sweetheart, and they try to act like they're still 19, 50 going on 19. You know the story. It's called a midlife crisis. And at best, people who get involved in this look silly, and at worst, they can do some incredible damage trying to make the train go in reverse. The reality is the train is going in one direction, and it's picking up speed, and there's no slow down button, there's no stop button, and there certainly is no reverse button. It's the train of death and decay. That's a great sermon. You're thinking, man, 10 minutes ago I was really happy. Hang on. You don't appreciate the good news till you get the bad news. The train of death and decay, and it affects us all. And all of us experience in one form or another this thing I'm calling angst. It's a form of fear. It's what Pink Floyd was referring to as quiet desperation. And it's not just the English way. We all kind of go through life in quiet desperation. You realize the train is picking up speed one day perhaps, or you realize that the sand is going through your hands. And you realize that life seems to be passing you by and you just can't stop it. And that creates a sense of angst, a sense of desperation, a sense of anxiety inside of you. Maybe you contemplate the reality of hitting that wall and how fragile life is. You're driving, and all of a sudden you realize, if I turned a quarter of an inch, I would be dead. And then all of a sudden it occurs to you that if anybody turned their steering wheel a quarter of an inch, you might be dead. Our lives are so precarious. And you realize that when that moment comes, you've got to go through that tunnel of death all by yourself. No one can go there with you. And in your worldview, perhaps you don't know what's on the other side. Maybe in your worldview, there's nothingness on the other side, and that creates fear in you. There's a sense of angst, anxiety, worry, despair about that. Or maybe you wake up one day and you look in the mirror and you have to admit to yourself that at least by the world's standards, you're not as pretty as you used to be. You're not the drop-dead gorgeous gal you used to be. You're not the hunk you used to be. You're not as vibrant as you used to be, as strong as you used to be, as sexy as you used to be, as quick-witted and as funny as you used to be, or as popular as you used to be. The thought occurs to you that maybe you've had your 15 minutes in the sun, and that sense of loss can create a sense of angst, despair, fear, worry. Maybe at some point you realize the dreams that you had, so many dreams, many of them at least, you're not going to see happen. The dreams are gone. 10 years have got behind you. You kept waiting for someone or something to show you the way. You thought something would happen that would make a difference, and it never took place. You were going to be somebody. You were going to accomplish some things. You were going to change the world. You were going to fall in love and have a marriage like nobody else. You were going to be